I am Jim Helton, President of the Tri-State Freethinkers, and welcome to the March for Science! Are you excited to be here? I said, are you excited to be here? All right, to give you a rundown of how this is going to work, we have a fantastic lineup of speakers for you. They are going to speak for about an hour and 15 minutes, so we should end our speeches at 11:15-ish. At that time, we will announce Now We March. It is important we stay off of 5th Street. We are going to funnel through here. We will have marshals blocking this, so please do not stampede the marshals. When we say Now We March, we will allow the speakers to line up, and then we will march to 6th Street, where we will stop to allow everybody to fill in. Then we will continue the route to the public library, to City Hall, and back to Fountain Square. So which way we're going to go? We're going to go this way. Which way are we going to go? No, not that way, this way. Very good. The first person I'd like to bring up, he is in charge of the Tri-State Skeptics. Please welcome Colin Thornton to the stage.
Hello, everybody. It's great to see such a big crowd here. I'm Colin Thornton, the organizer for Tri-State Skeptics. We're a local science advocacy group that promotes science and critical thinking in the Cincinnati region. We hold monthly events called Science on Tap, where we allow scientists to speak about their research to the community. Those are always free. We're all here because we're advocates for science and we care about science, and we should all strive to better understand it. We're all responsible for knowing our facts when we speak to people about science. And in order to do that better, I encourage you to come to the next Science on Tap and quench your curiosity. If you're interested about the Tri-State Skeptics, it's meetup.com/skeptic. And you can also go to the red tent in the back, and they have more information about Tri-State Freethinkers and Tri-State Skeptics. I'd like to introduce our first speaker who just spoke at our last Science on Tap event. Dean Regas has been the astronomer at the Cincinnati Observatory since 2000. He's a renowned educator, a national popularizer of astronomy, and an expert in observational astronomy. His first book, Facts from Space, just hit the shelves in October. Everybody give a big hand for Dean Regas.
Good morning, everybody. Good morning. Thanks for having me here today. This is great. This is great. Now, whenever I look into a telescope, something just happens to me. When I look in a telescope and I see the craters on the moon, the rings of Saturn, the moons of Jupiter, something just happens to me. I don't know what it is. It's this feeling that you get, this emotion that I get every time. I've been doing this for 20 years, and I still say, wow, every time I look at the universe. And this, I feel like a 9-year-old when I'm at the observatory. I'm looking through a telescope. And this is an experience we need to have everybody have in their lives. We need to have the opportunity for everybody to go on a field trip. There's this power of the field trip. And I know when, if you can think back to when you were a kid, and you maybe went to the planetarium, or you went to the zoo, or you went to the museum, or something like that. Think about your fondest moments. Think about how that might have influenced your lives. And think about if maybe you didn't get that opportunity. I know we always have kids that go out and they do their programs and they go to field trips, but I want to encourage adults to go on field trips too, because we need to have, it's never too late to get inspired by science. I mean, first of all, I'm not a scientist. I just play one on TV. But it is an amazing thing that we can all be scientists. I think we all have it in ourselves. We all have this innate curiosity to know more and to never be satisfied with just what we're told. We want to go out there and see things. And so I just feel that wow moment whenever it comes to science, whenever people look through microscopes, whenever people look through telescopes, whenever people hike in the woods, there's these wow moments. And we want everybody to have these wow moments. So I hope that everybody today can put it on themselves to say, okay, I'm going to go out there, I'm going to have my field trip. I'm going to have my experience here in Cincinnati. There's so many places to go. And when it comes back to Saturn, I guess I have a soft spot for Saturn, my favorite planet. There's these great places everywhere to see Saturn in telescopes, to see the Cassini spacecraft that's circling around Saturn and is ending its mission soon. Oh man, I'm getting sad. I'm getting choked up because Cassini is awesome. I encourage everybody to check out the Cassini spacecraft. But really, when I think of science, what I think of is wow. I really think that should be our slogan. What do you think? And so, I mean, I think that's because we want to get people excited about this. I know, are we nerds? Okay, good. I'm just making sure. Okay, so but I mean, we want to like share this excitement, and maybe it's nerdy excitement. I don't care. It's a wow moment that we want everybody to have. So when we're looking through a telescope, what do we say? Wow. When we look through a microscope, what do we say? When we hike through the woods and we see cool animals and plants, what do we say? And what do we want to share this with the rest of the people? We want to say wow and have them have their wow moment. So, is everybody ready to get fired up today? All right, Cincinnati, let's drop some science on them.
Our next speaker, I'm super proud to announce, she is only 12 years old. She has already started receiving scholarship money for her activism. She is the equal rights advocate for the Tri-State Freethinkers, and my daughter. Please give it up for Kelly Helton.
Some of my past teachers, when talking about the Big Bang Theory and evolution, have told us these are just theories and we can believe what we want. How can you teach something that you don't even understand? If you are a teacher, here are some of the things that we want to learn. The Earth is over 4.5 billion years old, and it's not flat either. We want to learn evolution from Richard Dawkins and Charles Darwin, not Ken Ham. We want to get our vaccination information from places like Children's Hospital, not Jenny McCarthy. Exemptions for public schools should be based on your medical history and not your beliefs. Neil deGrasse Tyson says, "The good thing about science, it is true, whether or not you believe in it." When it comes to sex education, we want medically and scientifically accurate information. You cannot teach us about sex by telling us not to have it. Why do people think that educating us is harmful? Humans are the main reason for climate change. Bringing a snowball to the Senate floor during winter does not disprove climate change. We cannot work on our solutions to our problems until we agree on the facts. The scientific method is the best method we have. Once you try bringing the supernatural into the equation, it is no longer science. We want science and we want it now. What do we want? When do we want it? What do we want? When do we want it? What do we want? When do we want it? Carl Sagan once said, "I don't want to believe, I want to know." We want to get our science information from scientists. We do not want your agenda. We do not want your politics. We do not want your beliefs. We want unadulterated science. We need science from our scientists, not silence. I like to quote my friend Bill Nye the Science Guy. Science is the key to the future. And if you do not believe in science, you're holding everyone else back. The oceans are rising, and so shall we. Welcome to the resistance.
Give it up one more time for Kelly Helton. As we bring up our doctors and scientists, we also thought it was important to hear from our students. So we're going to have several students introduce our speakers. The first I would like to bring up is Leah Rutt. She's a student in environmental studies at the University of Cincinnati.
Climate change is real. It's not a hoax or make-believe. The evidence is all around us. Glaciers are melting, sea levels are rising, entire species and ecosystems are dying. And unfortunately, it's a result of how we live. As an urban planning major, it is my job to think about the future. Unfortunately, cities are the major producers of greenhouse gases, producing up to 70% of emissions. That has absolutely got to change if we want to stop destroying the ozone layer. A great way to start is by taking a look at how we live our lives. Let's stop looking to blame someone else and start doing something about it. Let's stop being so obsessed with cars and sprawl. Let's plant some trees and incorporate nature and carbon dioxide absorbers into our built environment. Every time we leave the lights on, let's think about the mountains that have been obliterated just for the sake of having more coal to burn. Let's get conscious, and let's start today. I would like to introduce Dr. Wells. He's an endowed professor of pediatrics at the Cincinnati Children's Hospital Medical Center. He's in the Division of Developmental Biology, and where he established and now directs the human pluripotent stem cell facility. He is also the director for basic research in the Division of Endocrinology.
Well, about these young people, all I can say is wow. I want to get some of them working in my lab. Man. So, as you've heard, my name's Jim Wells, and I'm a basic biomedical researcher at Cincinnati Children's Hospital, that gem up on the hill. And today I want to tell you about how I got into scientific research, a little bit about the research in my lab, and lastly, how scientists, all of us, need to engage everyone around us about how inspirational science is. So now I suspect a lot of people in science got into it for the same reason I did, because we just like to figure out how stuff works. It's awesome. In fact, there's absolutely nothing cooler than looking down in your microscope and seeing something for the first time, seeing something that nobody else in the world knows about. That is a rush. Now, my first exposure to discovery-based research was at the University of Maine, doing wound response in potatoes. Now, I thought that was the coolest thing I had ever done. A couple of years later, I was working as a research technician, studying brown fat in mice and how it controls obesity. Again, the coolest thing I had ever done. Now, some might say we shouldn't waste money studying wound response in potatoes, echo certain politicians, which I'm not supposed to say. But clearly, the million people who died during the potato blight in the 1850s would disagree with that. So fast forward a couple of years, through grad school, through postdoctoral training, years of training, I find myself here in Cincinnati running a lab that is using stem cells to grow miniature versions of human organs in a petri dish. Definitely the coolest thing I've ever done. Now this came about after a decade of basic research where we can now make special cells called pluripotent stem cells from any child who comes into our pediatric center. We can turn those pluripotent stem cells into organ tissues, things like stomach tissues or intestine or pancreatic beta cells that make insulin. And we're now working with the surgeons at Cincinnati Children's to try to develop these labs into bigger tissues that someday in the future might be used for transplantation-based therapies for people with degenerative diseases of the digestive tract or diabetes. Now, our ability to do these really cool things has been built on decades of publicly funded basic research. on how organs normally form during embryonic development. Now, in general, support for basic research has been absolutely the most important driver of discovery and new therapies, and you'll hear about some of those from some of the next speakers. It's made us a world leader in biomedical research, and on average has returned a massive investment on return. I mean, send that to the business people making some of these decisions. The ROI in basic research is massive. Now, George Washington wrote that there's nothing which can better deserve your patronage than the promotion of science and literature. Now, let's hear it for George. Now, basic research today is being threatened by short-sighted cuts in national funding and misinformation that's perpetuated in the social media and some news outlets who have occupied the stage unchallenged. Now, as scientists and researchers and teachers, we need to get on that stage. We need to inspire our friends about the awesomeness of science. Scientists are building human organs in a dish. They're discovering how butterflies migrate thousands of miles across continents. Scientists and engineers are building rockets that are sending us into space. I mean, how awesome is that? I mean, seriously. You don't need to be a rocket scientist to be inspired and to inspire others. It's just innate. Talk about this with your grandma, your Aunt Tilly. Contact your local teachers that are teaching your children. Connect with local churches and synagogues and mosques, and just talk about science, how cool it is and how it inspires you. And through that, you will be able to inspire others. So I'm going to end this, since you are already admitted that you're a bit of a nerdy crowd, I'm going to end this with a riddle. So what do potatoes, brown fat, and stem cells have in common? They are all awesomely inspirational. They're all areas of basic research that are going to improve humanity. And they're all things that I've studied over the years. And I hope you can be inspired by science like everyone else I know has been. Thank you very much.
I'd like to thank a few people that made all this happen. First and foremost, the majority of the funding came from donors like you. For all the people that donated out into the crowd and that couldn't make it today, give a big round of applause for them. We also had a union sponsor. AFGE Local 3840 was a sponsor of this event. And our two major sponsors, the Tri-State Freethinkers and Planned Parenthood. Hey, Bob. Also, we want to do something here in a minute. If you are out in the crowd and you are a kid that has a really cool sign, we'd like you to line up here by the ramp. You're going to have the opportunity to come up here and show us your cool signs. So if you would like to do that now, we're going to bring you up in a minute. I also have one more thing I would like to read to you. This is a proclamation from the city of Cincinnati. Be it proclaimed, whereas the March for Science champions publicly funded and publicly communicated science as a pillar of human freedom and prosperity. And whereas we unite as a diverse, nonpartisan group to call for science that upholds the common good, and for the political leaders and policymakers to enact evidence-based policies in the public interest. And whereas the March for Science is a celebration of science, highlighting the very real role that science plays in each of our lives, and the need to respect and encourage research that gives us insight into the world. And whereas there will be several scientists speaking on a number of timely topics to enlighten the Cincinnati community, and whereas a local march will be held to celebrate all things scientific. We, the city of Cincinnati, do hereby proclaim April 22nd, 2017 as March for Science Day in Cincinnati. Our next student I'd like to bring up is Mary Fitzpatrick. She's a grad student at Miami University, and she is the one that contacted almost all of these speakers and brought them up here. Please give it up for Mary Fitzpatrick.
Hi, everybody. I'm in the Advanced Inquiry Program, Project Dragonfly Advanced Inquiry Program at Miami University, which is a slightly non-traditional grad school program. My area of focus is how programming at leisure learning venues like museums, zoos, and aquariums can help engage in adults in science literacy and help get adults engaged in science. Also activities like attending science pubs and taking part in citizen science. These are the areas where people can get those kind of wow moments that Dean was speaking about. In the 1970s, the majority of Americans trust in science. Today, trust in science in America is at an all-time low. As outreach educators and people that are involved engaging people in science, we need to find new ways to get the public engaged in science so that America regains that trust in it, and we regain trust not just in science, but in the scientific process. I am going to introduce Linda Neenan. She is the founder of iSpace, which is a STEM learning center nonprofit. It's worked on engaging students in science, technology, and math, STEM learning, and in encouraging STEM careers. She served as the executive director of iSpace for 16 years until she retired earlier this year.
I am so excited to see so many people here. I mean, you should be commended for coming out on a cold day. This is terrific. I know we're talking about science. I'm going to expand that a little bit. I'm talking about STEM. For those of you who don't know, science, technology, engineering, and math. Why? Because you can't do science unless you can apply math. You have to use technology. You've got to understand the scientific process and the engineering process. And right now, as we march today, there are 500,000 digital age jobs going unfilled because we lack the STEM skilled workforce to take on those jobs. And worse than that, our kids are not aspiring to go into STEM careers. And I think a lot of that has to do with the influence on them. Certainly the political climate now that dismisses all the value of all things STEM, but also some of the people we know, society in general. I'm going to give you a quick story about myself because I think it tells kind of where I'm coming from. Was the daughter of immigrants. My parents came from Italy. They had no education. They didn't know what to do with me. I was a little bit weird. Well, I was nerdy back when it wasn't cool. And I wanted to go to college. They didn't know how to make that happen for me. And so my dad worked in the factory at General Motors. And he one day saw on the bulletin board there were scholarship applications to GMI, General Motors Institute, now Kettering University. And he brought it home, and I took to my high school counselor, "Dear Mrs. Grant." And Mrs. Grant looked at it and she said, "Well, Linda, what is this?" And I said, "It's a scholarship application." And she said, "I can see that, but it's to GMI." And I said, "No problem. My dad works for General Motors." She said, "But that's an engineering school." And I said, "Yeah, I know." And she took that application and she threw it down on the desk and she said, "You're a girl." Mrs. Grant let me become a math teacher, and so she influenced my career. Now, there are lots of other stories I could give you, but they gave me 5 minutes, so I can't tell you the other stories. Catch me later, I will. But there are a lot of negative impacts, a lot of negative influence on kids pursuing STEM careers right now. You know, there are international tests they give around the world. Well, international, yeah, I sound like somebody we know. No political comments. But they give PISA tests. They give this test to 15-year-olds in 65 countries around the world. Of those 65 countries, American students finished 38th in math and 28th in science. Now, I don't know about you, but I'm not willing to accept that for our kids. They deserve more. We all can help them. I've lived by this saying all my life. Every child is the responsibility of every adult. So those of you without kids, you're not forgiven that responsibility. You've got to go out there and help us motivate these kids. You've got to let them see that science is exciting. Science can be fun. It can lead to an exciting career that benefits society, and they can learn that they can be good at it. You can do this by mentoring a robotics team. If you don't know how, see me. You could do that by volunteering at places like the observatory or iSpace. If you don't know how to do that, see me. You can get your company to support STEM initiatives through volunteerism and funding. See me. You can also tutor at one of the schools in science or math. You can help us turn around these trends. Now, in closing, I just want to say, I have to find my card to tell you what I want to say. Okay, all right. In closing, we must loudly and consistently advocate for STEM. We must insist that our region support STEM financially to the same degree that they do sports and the arts. Thank you very much.
We got a few signs if you want to take a few pictures real quick, and I love the first one, science, not silence. Keep walking this way. Give them a round of applause. Keep them coming. Give it up one more time for our future scientists and advocates. Our next student we'd like to bring up is Jessica Hobart. She's a student in health science at the University of Cincinnati.
Good morning, everyone. That's a really tough act to follow, but I'll try my best. So I'm Jessica Hobart, and I'm a second-year health sciences at the University of Cincinnati. Precision, dedication, ambition, passion. The endless quest for knowledge, evidence, facts. Now, more than ever, science is of the utmost importance. Although some may dismiss science as a complex field that lies far above their heads, it is at the core of every being. At some point in our lives, we have all felt the beautiful and breathtaking power of our natural environment, felt relief from pain and sickness after receiving comforting medical care, felt the joy and ease of computer technology in our day-to-day lives. None of these would be possible without the precision, dedication, ambition, and passion of scientists. As an enthusiastic environmentalist whose future career plans involve healthcare, that is why science is important to me. I'm happy to introduce our next speaker, Dr. Ray Bignell II, who is a clinical fellow in the Division of Nephrology and Hypertension and a National Institute of Health T32 Research Fellow in the Center for Adherence and Self-Management at Cincinnati Children's Hospital Medical Center. Dr. Bignell's clinical research interests include social determinants of health, population health, and health disparities in pediatric kidney disease and transplantation. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Jesse. I appreciate that. Good morning, everybody. It is a pleasure to be here as a community researcher. It's exciting to see so many members of my community here today to stand for science. You know, I am the proud son of a psychologist and a physicist, so science, you could say, is in my blood. These two scientists taught me the values of faith and service, and that simply loving science and learning science was not enough. They taught me that my science must do the world some good and make my community a better place. Now, as a pediatric nephrologist at Cincinnati Children's, I care for sick children every day, and that gives my life deep meaning. But the most meaningful work that I do does not take place at the hospital at all. You see, the most meaningful work that I do as a doctor takes place in the basement of an old church in Avondale, where I meet with a group of inner-city fathers who are striving to make their community safer and healthier for their children and their families. I want to tell you about some of these gentlemen. I meet with a young man whose name is Mike. He's a single father of 6 who organizes his neighborhood's efforts to keep children healthy by serving as a block captain. There's another gentleman there named Reno. He's a single father who moved to Cincinnati a few years ago. At the time, Reno looked for help, but couldn't find help making ends meet because there are few agencies that would offer help to a single father like him. That's when he found the neighborhood church pantry and the fatherhood program, which turned his life around. Now he's an active member of his community, teaching safe sleep classes to new moms and dads in the neighborhood, where his work has literally saved the lives of dozens of babies. These men have welcomed me, a young physician scientist, to join their community. And through a community academic partnership, I have shared tips with them on keeping their children healthy and strategies for navigating the complex healthcare system. I was even awarded a grant from the American Academy of Pediatrics to partner with these fathers to research the barriers that prevent them from being more involved in their children's care. But from this experience, I learned that science does more than help us unlock the mysteries of the universe. It gives the opportunity to humanize discovery and to answer big questions that do a world of good. Perhaps it is for this reason that you two have gathered here today in Fountain Square, recognizing that our movement for science is more than about science for science sake. The time is now for brave men and women, boys and girls across America to reject the notion of false facts, to work together and through compassionate exercise of science, build a world of hope for those who feel forgotten and left behind. So today, if you are a chemist, be more than a chemist. Live life as a catalyst for change in your community, because we are marching for you. If you are an engineer, be more than an engineer. Build bridges of acceptance between yourself and those who are different from you, because we are marching for you. If you are a physicist, be more than a physicist. Gravitate to a young person who is looking for a mentor who will believe in his or her ability to rise above personal challenge, because we are marching for you. And if you are a science teacher, thank you for inspiring the next generation of world changers. We are marching for you. And if you are a zoologist, keep sending us baby Fiona videos, because we need them now more than ever before. We are marching for you too. Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. once said, "Through our scientific genius, we have made the world a neighborhood, but we have failed through moral commitment to make it a brotherhood, and so we've ended up with guided missiles and misguided men." Let me ask you today, do you want to know what our world would be like if we stood together in brotherhood and sisterhood of moral commitment, intent on making it a better place? Well, just look around you, because it would look like the March for Science in Cincinnati today, and we will march till victory is won. Thank you.
Didn't Dean say, wow? Got a couple quick announcements for you. There will be a climate rally on Fountain Square next weekend at 11:30 a.m. I hope you can join us for that, as well as they still need volunteers. If you would like to volunteer for the climate rally, go see the Tri-State Freethinkers tent in the back. They have volunteer forms for you. Our next student I would like to bring up is Kayla Fertelman. She's a student in environmental studies at the University of Cincinnati.
Hi guys, my name is Kayla Fertelman. I'm an environmental studies major at the University of Cincinnati. I believe in science, and that is because I've gone to Tijuana, Mexico 5 times. In this country, I've met people who have been used as an industry wasteland, and their water is unsafe to drink. When you meet a kid there and they ask you for water, they're not asking for water, they're asking for soda or juice, because they've never known what it's like to have clean water that's accessible and inexpensive. Until we start to change our mindset and how we look at science, we will never be able to give these kids what they deserve. We do not have to live like this, just a stone's throw away from the city of San Diego. We need accurate information about the impacts of climate change. We need solutions so that the people in the third world countries are not dealing with the chemical waste of the first world. I believe in science because I believe in a world that we can change. I believe that by understanding the world, we can begin to make the positive changes we need so desperately. Dr. Erin Haynes, an associate professor of environmental health in the University of Cincinnati's Medical Center. Dr. Haynes' primary research interest is to conduct community-engaged environmental health research. I am so honored to introduce her.
Wow. Wow, look at all of you. You are scientists, and I love it. I am so proud and thankful to be up here representing the University of Cincinnati. I am so thankful and proud to be up here representing women in medicine and science. I am the child of 2 educators who taught science in the classroom, so yay for the teachers in the audience. I have a wonderful daughter here who is enthusiastic about learning more about science. My research combines the elements of the environment, the earth, air quality, water quality, and the impacts on the human. And happy Earth Day! Science only becomes powerful when it's combined with communication, the arts. Yay for those in the arts community. Bringing it all together takes it off the shelves of the library and onto the streets. So we are so excited to be sharing our enthusiasm and love for science as we march down in Cincinnati. I have to say that 100 years ago, we could not see in between these buildings because of all of the smoke and the air pollution in the area. Do you know who? It was the Women's Club of Cincinnati who said, that's it, we're not taking any more dirt in our environment. And they worked in strong partnership with City Council and the Cincinnati scientists to clear the air. And that partnership can do even more now in the future. So, partner. So grab a scientist, grab a community member, grab a politician, and let's go.
We have a few other dates that you might be interested in. If you would like to continue this conversation, I'd like to tell you about 3 events. The first is the Attack on Science and How We Will Fight Back, which is held at Newport-on-the-Levee Wednesday, May 3rd with the Tri-State Freethinkers. They also have another great event. If you'd like to help the environment and do a little activism, they adopted the highway in front of the Ark Encounter. Yeah, so you can help clean up that highway. And then on Tuesday, May 16th, we have a discussion series, Can Science Answer Questions of Morality? So that will not be a speech, that will be more of a discussion series. We'd love to hear from you on that one. Our next student speaker is Chelsea Walters. She's a student in environmental studies at the University of Cincinnati. Please give it up for Chelsea.
Hello, everybody. My name is Chelsea Walters, and I'm an environmental studies student at UC. I remember first becoming interested in the environment and science when I was about 12 years old. My stepdad took me backpacking for the first time, and I was in awe of the beautiful and unfamiliar parts of nature. After just that one trip, I was convinced that I needed to become a better steward of the earth, and I've been working on that ever since. The moral of my story is share your passion for the earth and for science with those around you, especially children. As you can see, all these children up here earlier, they're our future. We have to stop taking the planet for granted. And now I am so happy to welcome our next speaker, Dr. Glenn Storrs. Dr. Storrs is the Withrow Farney Curator of Vertebrate Paleontology at the Cincinnati Museum Center and adjunct professor of geology at the University of Cincinnati. Dr. Storrs oversees the museum's fossil vertebrate research program and collection and is an international authority on the anatomy and evolution of fossil reptiles.
It's great to see everybody. Hello. Who here is a scientist? Who here is a science educator? Who's an advocate for science? And who loves science? All right. I am a paleontologist. I dig up and I study dinosaurs. Wow, right, Dean? But I'm not really going to talk about that today, except to say that paleontology has been called the gateway drug for science. Who doesn't love dinosaurs? And if we can inspire children with dinosaurs and other fossils to pursue careers in science or to learn how important science is for the world, then we're helping prepare that generation to save the problems that our world is facing. But dinosaurs, I'm here to tell you, are also not just for kids anymore. In the last 20 years, more dinosaurs have been named and described to science than in the previous 175 years. We now know that birds are living dinosaurs. You can see outside your window your favorite dinosaur every morning, the cardinal. Because of dinosaurs, we now know that extraterrestrial impacts can cause mass extinctions on our planets. These are just some examples of how paleontology is an active, dynamic, and exciting science. Now, I don't expect that everyone will grow up to be a paleontologist, far from it. But I do think that everyone should have an appreciation for the dynamic, changing nature of our planet. Paleontology is just one of many exciting fields of science today. Why is this important? Because an informed, scientifically literate public is critical to solving the problems we face. And such a public can evaluate evidence and arguments, can call out disinformation when they see it, and can make informed decisions in an increasingly complex world. Now, yes, there are debates in science. That's what science is all about. We argue with one another continuously. But certain topics today, like organic evolution, climate change, to vaccinate or not vaccinate, are not scientifically controversial. They are only politically contentious. Society needs facts and evidence-based decision-making to create policy today. Society needs science. Most of all, science is a methodology. It's not a body of facts. It's not about scientific jargon. It's not about memorizing arcane facts. And if that's what you think science is, if that's what you remember about science, then you were cheated in your education. We must address how science is taught in schools today. Science is a process by which we attempt to understand our world by observing natural phenomena, by experimenting, by collecting and testing data. It's the scientific method. And as one of my old professors said, science is gladiator school. Not everyone's opinion is the same. The best data and evidence wins. Our society has benefited from science and technology throughout history. In fact, Cincinnati has grown. Its development has been based in large part upon our many fine corporations, our great universities, and our wonderful hospitals, and the research that's been carried out there over the years. Science benefits everyone, and it's a part of everyday life. So what is it, in addition to a methodology? It's fact-based. It's rigorous. It's demanding, but it's not hard. Everyone can do it. Everyone can do science in their everyday life. All you need is to be curious, to ask questions, and to pursue the answers. Science is a global endeavor. Today we are asking global questions about science. But science is also a local issue. If you're concerned about the quality of your drinking water or the stability of the slopes upon which your house is built, you want science to be informing those decisions. Science can be applied. It provides common sense approaches to solving problems, but it's also basic. At the most basic level, scientists ask questions because we want to know the answers. It's iterative. It builds upon the work of others. Scientists today stand upon the shoulders of those who've gone before them. And importantly, in today's climate, it is nonpartisan. Science respects the truth and demonstrable facts. One last thing. It's been said before, science is cool. Stereotypes of science and scientists can be as damaging as any other stereotype. We need to encourage children to love and follow science, not to be afraid to pursue it. Children who are naturally curious love science. If we can inspire the next generation, we'll solve today's problems and the problems of the future. And finally, an admonition to my colleagues, my fellow scientists, we must be engaged in the public discourse. We need to do a better job of informing the average person of what we do and why. We need to get our results out in an engaging and an informative manner. The days of the ivory tower are over. And most of all, we must help and support science teachers. In these days of complex problems, global issues, and threats to research funding, we need to be able to help teachers provide the curriculum and the information that they need to inspire the next generation of scientists. So a word of caution. If you have leaky pipes in your house, you call a plumber. If you've got wiring problems at home or in your business, call an electrician. If you have questions about science and the problems facing our world, don't talk to a politician, call a scientist.
We brought up several people that helped make this happen, but I want to acknowledge a few people behind the scenes that you may not have seen. Bob Herman behind me, Jen Scott, we got Daniel, Zach, and all the people that are marshalling in the vest here. Please give them a big round of applause. We could have not have made this happen with the army of volunteers that we had. Our next student I'd like to bring up is Bella Adaglio. She's a New Albany High School student.
I'm here today because science is necessary to advance every part of our modern lives. We have eradicated some diseases, developed vaccines, the artificial heart, developed and extended our lifespan. We need to speak up for scientists and encourage critical thinking. I'm proud to introduce the next speaker, Crystal Wilmhoff. She is an assistant medical director at Planned Parenthood, Southwest Ohio. Crystal is responsible for managing the nurse practitioner staff. She has a Bachelor of Science in Biology and Psychology from Center College in Kentucky and a Master of Science in Nursing from Vanderbilt University School of Nursing in Tennessee.
Good morning. Thank you all for being here on this chilly day. I want to start out by thanking, Planned Parenthood would like to thank the coordinators for inviting us to participate in this historic event. It's clear that we're facing critical and challenging period, the most critical challenging period in our history. This is a moment we need to come together to protect the advances that we've made as people dedicated to equity and justice for all. Planned Parenthood of Southwest Ohio stands with the scientific community today and always, because without them, we would be unable to provide the medical care to our patients. I would also like to express my personal gratitude. My father was a professor of evolutionary biology and environmental physiology, and he would have been very proud that I was speaking today. Thanks. I would like you all to know that Planned Parenthood's mission is to help people. We want to provide high quality health care, but we also want people to make informed decisions about their reproductive lives and sexual health. We're dedicated to helping people develop healthy sexual attitudes and behaviors, and that'll serve them throughout their life, throughout their lives. But without science, this wouldn't be possible. Planned Parenthood's medical standards and guidelines are based on information that's gathered from professional and scientific organizations such as the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention, the Food and Drug Administration, the United States Preventative Services Task Force, and the American College of Obstetrics and Gynecologists. Without scientists, how would we have known how to best serve the 20,000 patients that came through our center's doors last year? Did you all know? Thanks. Did you all know that sexually transmitted infections are on the rise? Did you know that Hamilton County has the highest rates of gonorrhea, chlamydia, and syphilis in the entire state? So without science, how would we know that gonorrhea is becoming resistant to traditional treatment? How would we know that we need to give dual antibiotics to prevent infertility and poor fetal outcomes? It's important that we're testing and treating as much of the population as possible. This September, we're launching expedited partner treatment so that patients are able to treat their infected partners without those partners having to come into the center, thus removing a barrier to care. Yes. Did you know that last year over 10,000 people came to us for birth control? Without science, how could we help them to decide what was the best method for them? How could we tell them what's good, better, and best at preventing pregnancy? Many of the gains that women have made since 1965, as far as timing and spacing of our children, obtaining education, entering the workforce, and moving closer to pay equity, are the direct results of access to birth control. But this wouldn't be possible without science. So we all know that preventative screening can detect life-threatening diseases such as breast cancer and cervical cancer. Early detection and treatment of these diseases save lives. Scientists from around the globe convene to the American Society of Colposcopy and Cervical Pathology World Conference. They analyze the data regarding the abnormal pap smears and their management. At Planned Parenthood, we incorporate this information into the management of the over 3,000 well-woman visits that we do per year. Without science, how would we know that HPV, or the human papillomavirus, was the cause of most cervical cancer and head and neck cancers for men? Without science, how could we develop the HPV vaccine to protect the next generation from this devastating virus? We also provide parent education and professional training for those who work with and care for young people. In the classroom, we're committed to providing positive, comprehensive, age-appropriate sex education, because scientific studies have shown that when young people are given accurate information and the support they need, that they will make smart, responsible choices. Yeah. As Kelly said, abstinence only, sex education doesn't work. So science should never be a partisan issue. Healthcare should never be political. People who come to Planned Parenthood, they're not making a political statement. They're coming to get health care that they need and that they can't receive elsewhere. So, I'm proud to report that the doors at Planned Parenthood Southwest Ohio are open, and we plan on staying open, and we plan on being stronger than ever. Thank you. But we can't fight this fight alone. So we have to send a really strong message that millions of people across this country are prepared to attack the fights on science and advancements in healthcare, because they intersect with the rights of young people, people of color, immigrants, and people of all faith backgrounds and incomes. April is Get Yourself Tested Month. So we encourage all of you in the community to protect your health. You go and get your preventative exams. Make sexually transmitted infection testing a part of your regular preventative care. I would challenge each and every one of you to visit the Planned Parenthood table in the back, learn how you can get involved, book an appointment to get your care from us, get yourself tested, and encourage your friends to do the same. Thank you again.
We are proud at the March for Science Cincinnati to have Planned Parenthood as a sponsor. They have a booth in the back, the white tent. Please go see them. They have an advocacy day May 3rd so please talk to Stephanie right here. She will be in the back later to speak. We will also have our booth set up when we come back to March. We are going to be here till 1 o'clock. So if you haven't had a chance when we march, when you come back to Fountain Square, they will still be here. Our next student is Chris Swinhagen. He's a student at Linder College of Business in the University of Cincinnati.
Hello, everyone. My name is Chris, and thank you all for coming today. This is incredible to look at in the crowd like this. Over the past 2 years, I've been immersing myself in the topics of science and climate change. With being involved in the UC sustainability community, I've learned more about science topics more than I ever have before. I learned more. Lastly, I'd like to ask all of you one thing as you go home today, is that you do more and more to make your carbon footprint less and less. Our next speaker is Dr. Jeffrey Winsett. Dr. Winsett is a professor of pediatrics, chief of the section of neonatology, perinatal and pulmonary biology, and executive director at the Perinatal Institute at Cincinnati Children's Hospital Medical Center, University of Cincinnati College of Medicine. He is internationally known for his research in pulmonary medicine, as well as for his clinical expertise in neonatology. Give a warm welcome to Dr. Winsett.
Wow, Cincinnati, I'm virtually shivering with excitement this morning to talk about potatoes and dinosaurs and microscopes in the universe and even Saturn. And to see the children scientists of the future. You're about ready to take over my laboratory. Come and get it. Science is waiting for you. We live in a community so rich in diversity, talent, and creativity, and a commitment to science. I have great faith that this is going to be equal to the many challenges faced by our families, their children, and our planet. I've had the wonderful privilege of working at Cincinnati Children's Hospital now for more than 40 years. I've been a pediatrician, a scientist, and I've been involved in fundamental science regarding how our lung works. Take a deep breath. It's fresh air, and it's working for you. I've been involved in the care of more than 30,000 newborn infants each year. There is nothing more beautiful than a newborn infant, the future that they hold for humanity and for all of us. I've been in science and medicine for more than 50 years. I've witnessed the most remarkable changes and advances, virtually a revolution in healthcare for children. These were all unimaginable to me when I began my training. It was fundamental science gained in the 50s and through the 70s that transformed healthcare for our children during this time. Just a few examples. As I started my training, nearly all preterm infants with severe respiratory distress who needed a ventilator died in our hands. Now more than 90% of these infants live, and very, very few ever die from respiratory distress. Only 1/3 of children with leukemia went into remission. Today, at Children's Hospital, more than 90% survive this challenging disease to live full lives. As a training pediatrician, I routinely saw whooping cough, the complications of polio, measles, hepatitis, meningitis, rubella. But because of immunizations, our medical students have never even seen these diseases, these once common diseases of children. Future research holds extraordinary promise to cure those patients who are still affected by cancer, by malformations, by challenging diseases. And many of us at Children's and throughout the world, scientists, are actively working to do just that. Science, simply observation, data collection, analysis, is a process intrinsic to human intellect. Its application has transformed all aspects of medicine, our lives, the way we live in our homes, our health, our education. Data are everywhere, and we can only ignore scientific data regarding all these aspects of our life at our peril. Science offers our ability to adapt to the complexities faced by all of us who share our lives on our planet and the lives of all of our descendants in the future. Finally, I'm perplexed by the perceived conflict between beliefs and science. Living my life as a scientist, I hold dear so many unprovable beliefs, whether related to the mysteries of our endless universe, how it was formed, the awareness of our own existence, our personal beliefs that religious and cultural heritage are the core of our well-being and of our society, and that human creativity and faith in the future will protect us all on this wonderful planet that we live on. Pondering what I was to say this morning, I had a moment of memory in 1957. I was 10 years old. It was October, and I was sitting with my father on the front porch of my steps in a little town in Ohio. And Sputnik went across the universe, and I said to myself and to my father, the sky is no limit, the universe is boundless but knowable, and that the human spirit of discovery would transform the world and transform the people that we love forever. Thank you so much. Let's march.
Before we bring up our last speaker, I'd like to share some behind the scenes of the March for Science to let you know kind of the environment that science is in and the challenges we face putting this together. When we reached out to multiple organizations, it was hard to get them involved or to speak about the actual science out of fear of backlash and defunding. This was on multiple levels. We had scientists that were in fear if they spoke out about their field of study that they would be fired. This is a problem. We must stand up for the institutions. We must stand up for the scientists and thank those who are here today willing to speak for science. Just like people tell you to contact your Congress and Senate, I would encourage you to contact the organizations that promote science and tell them, not only do you want to speak out for science, we need to speak out against anti-science. That if they do this, they do not have to worry about funding cuts because we will fund them. We will support the organizations. We will support science. Thank you. Our last student to come up, who I'm very proud of, she contacted me, and I'm looking forward to hearing her speak. Julie Ross is a student at Highlands Middle School.
Hello, my name is Julie Russ, and I'm an 8th grader at Highlands Middle School. I'm here today because I'm passionate about the whys of the world. Questions often hold much greater power than answers do, and we must use these questions to build a better environment and brighter future through science. Now, it is my pleasure to introduce Dr. Gene Kritsky. He is the Dean of Behavioral and Natural Sciences and is a professor in the Department of Biology at Mount St. Joseph University. Professor Kritsky serves as editor of American Entomologist and has published 5 books and more than 100 papers on insect evolution, beekeeping history, Egyptology, and Charles Darwin. Please join me in welcoming him.
Thank you, Julie. Are you afraid of science? Cincinnati has never been afraid of science. In fact, we have a long history of scientists coming to the city to discuss new ideas and even controversial ideas. It was 140 years ago this very day that Alfred Russel Wallace was here in Cincinnati. He was visiting Cincinnati to present a lecture at the Natural History Society that eventually evolved into our great Museum of Natural History and Science. It was Wallace who, with Charles Darwin, discovered evolution through natural selection at a time when evolution was considered a shocking idea to many We opened our doors, we opened our minds to one of the principal figures in the development of evolution. That's Cincinnati. And Wallace is not the first example of Cincinnati playing a role in the discovery of evolution. In 1803, Meriwether Lewis of the Lewis and Clark expedition stopped at Big Bone Lick to collect large fossil bones of extinct mastodons. Some of those bones made their way to Paris, where Georges Cuvier, the founder of comparative anatomy, used them as evidence for the controversial idea of animal extinction. Lewis stopped here at the behest of President Thomas Jefferson because Jefferson was interested in finding out if these mastodons were still living in the West. President Jefferson wanted to extend the boundaries of human knowledge. He was a president who was not afraid of science. 175 years ago, 1842, the geologist Charles Lyell, whose great book Principles of Geology influenced Darwin, also visited Cincinnati. Get a trend here? We've been at the forefront. Lyell examined the Ordovician geology of the area, in addition to going to Big Bone Lick. So you see, the major figures in the history of science have been influenced by the natural history of Cincinnati. Even Darwin's bulldog, the devil's disciple himself, came to Cincinnati in 1876. And while he didn't lecture here, the Cincinnati Enquirer was so astounded he was here, they reported his coming and goings in the local paper. Like Lyell and Wallace, Huxley was welcomed to our city because he was a thinking individual, a scientist. In the past century, interest in evolution continued with the 1925 Scopes trial in Tennessee, and the Cincinnati Enquirer carried several front-page stories about the trial. They even reported on facts that most people didn't know about. For example, Thomas Edison volunteered to go to Tennessee to give evidence on behalf of evolution and Scopes. And by the way, Edison lived here in Cincinnati in the 1860s. We're fortunate that we live in an area where we can go to road cuts and inspire our kids by collecting fossils that were preserved from 450-million-year-old hurricanes. Our fossils found right here in Cincinnati have documented how evolution proceeds. We live in a city that produced Lucy Braun, who helped us understand the ecology and the evolution of eastern forests. We can even see evolution in action in these forests. This year, you thought this will be once every 17, this year we may witness the origin of a new brood of spiriatical cicadas. Evolution is happening in our own backyards. Cincinnati science has made a difference in the development of evolution, just as it has in other aspects of our lives. Our children do not get polio because of a Cincinnati scientist. You get relief from seasonal allergies because of a Cincinnati scientist. It was a Cincinnati scientist who first set foot on the moon. We march today not just to fight for science, but to fight for Cincinnati science.
Are you ready to march? I can't hear you. Are you ready to march? We want science, not silence. What do we want? Science. What don't we want? Silence. What do we want? Science. What don't we want? Silence. Last time, what do we want? Science. What don't we want? Silence. All right, are you ready? And I'd like to thank our sign language interpreter. Please give her a big round of applause. Kelly, go for it. Are you ready? Now we march.